So chapter 3 is on the primary importance of secondary research, and as you can probably tell from the feisty title, it's in part a passionate argument in favour of taking secondary research seriously and respecting its centrality to the discipline of anthropology, but in part it's also intended to provide some basic, simple guidance that will make you feel that the whole process of doing secondary research, which, as I argue, is essential for all good anthropological research, is not too scary, and that the process of being transparent and honest at how you approach the secondary research is also not too scary either. So to start us off then, I think it's worth considering why it is that secondary research is not necessarily regarded as of primary significance in anthropology. We tend to find that students embarking in dissertation projects think of their intended identity as being associated with the Malinowskian ideal in some way of doing primary ethnographic field research directly with real people in the field, as it were, no matter where you may be. But in practice, I think it's really important that everyone should recognise that real anthropological work, the reality of professional anthropological research, is that most anthropological research is not primary. Most anthropological research is gathering information from a wide range of sources, online resources, libraries, film archives and so on, and most of what we learn that we end up using when we write about things is learned secondhand. Okay, so to think about this difference between primary and secondary research is one thing, but we should also recognize that secondary research, synthesizing knowledge from a wide range of sources, has always been of paramount importance in the discipline. So here, for example, are some of the key texts, the iconic key texts of the discipline. Marcel Moses' Essay on the Gift, Ruth Benedict's best-selling Chrysanthemum the Sword, one of the best, the most marketed books ever in anthropology, and then one of the most famous essays in anthropology, Marcel Salence's Notes on the Original Affluent Society. All of these done on secondary research, not directly based on primary research at all. So let's think through then analytically what it means to make a distinction between primary and secondary research, because this is not always entirely clearly understood. I think there are basically two distinctions worth bearing in mind. One is the distinction between learning what you need to know about people and their beliefs and attitudes and so on directly, straight from the horse's mouth as it were, by talking to people, or learning it indirectly, second-hand. That's one distinction. You see it in the vertical axis here. But there's also a distinction between learning things in the field and away from the field, on-site and off-site, if you like. So just to understand this diagram here, let's talk very quickly through an example. Supposing you want to learn about funerals in rural Kenya, and you're not yourself from rural Kenya, so by default, the traditional anthropological way, you actually travel to rural Kenya, hang out with some people, hope that somebody dies, so that you can watch a funeral and learn about what people actually do in funerals. However, when you're in the field, perhaps nobody will die when you're there. Too bad. You'll have to learn about funerals second-hand from other people, from reported accounts. So that would be that would be still on site, okay, on the left-hand side of this diagram. But it would be secondary fieldwork to the extent that you're learning about things through secondary reports. Hopefully you'll also prepare before you go by learning indirectly and off-site by going through secondary and even tertiary sources. Secondary sources are essentially when you're reading or analysing in some way somebody else's account of funerals. A tertiary source might be if somebody else has already done a literature review for you of everything that's available on funerals in rural Kenya or relevant information of funerals. That would be tertiary sources, off-site and indirect. And actually nowadays, there's a fourth way of doing research, which is actually accessing primary information, but remotely. So for example, if nobody died, but you're pretty keen to learn about funerals in a more direct way, if somebody had a mobile phone, one of your mates in rural Kenya, you could actually observe the next funeral directly, but remotely via mobile phone. So there's a brief analytical tool, if you like, for understanding the different kinds of research. And Then the other thing is you need to understand why it matters. Well, it matters because one of the key strengths of anthropology is that we put together a wide range of information from a wide range of sources in order to do holistic cross-cultural comparison, making use of multiple knowledge sources. And the more information sources you have, the more likely you're able to weave together information from a whole variety of informants and a variety of domains. This also gives us tremendous strategic flexibility, if you like, that by not pinning ourselves down to any one kind of information source, we can follow all kinds of surprising lines of inquiry. Our research can then become iterative, multi-stranded, labyrinthine, fumbling our way through a variety of archives, if you like, rather than being channeled through a single tightly controlled tunnel, as happens in controlled scientific positivistic research approaches. So the chapter will give you a variety of practical suggestions on how to do it, where are some good secondary resources, what you need to think about, how you can practically plan and make the best use of your time. So the chapter should help you be more efficient at doing it. It should also help you provide us a rationale, both for yourself but also for other people, that explains why you chose to spend your time on particular kinds of resources, looking for particular kinds of information rather than others. And that, my dears, will make you more transparent. It will make you able to convince others that you had some kind of a plausible strategy. The trouble with an awful lot of anthropology is that the secondary research strategy is nowhere declared. If you can be transparent about that, other people, especially from other disciplines, I think are more likely to trust you. And finally, if you're on top of your secondary research, you have a rationale, you use your time efficiently, you know why you're doing it, you can explain it to other people, you will retain at the same time tremendous flexibility. So there is a trade-off, I think, between being very, very clear exactly what you're going to do and when, and retaining the license, if you like, to be very flexible in your approach to doing it. So I hope all of you will try to be transparent and clear and rational, but I hope that in doing so you won't lose that wonderful gift that anthropologists have for finding out surprising information from surprising sources and asking questions that they hadn't even thought of before they started doing their research. Good luck.